Alrighty. So, first of all, I just wanted to thank everybody for all the kind words after part one, and for all of your interest and curiosity in the ICWA, which frankly surprised me a little bit, because I thought I was the only nerd who liked ICWA. And you guys have, both in the last training and outside around the courthouse, had really excellent questions, and I want to encourage the questions to continue. However, this presentation is divided into 4 parts, and I'm going to pause after each part for questions, but in the middle, so I can get through each specific section, I'd ask that we hold the questions. The 4 parts are going to be the QEW, which we started to prematurely get into a little bit last time. That's the qualified expert witness. Then there's active efforts, which again applies to all of you because that starts at detention. Placement preferences, which also start at detention. And tribal customary adoption, which for your guys' purposes can be summed up in 1 slide. So before we get into the meat, I wanted to give a little bit more historical context to what I discussed last time in part 1. ICWA matters, and why. This is a picture of one of the Indian boarding schools that I talked about last time. This is Carlisle Indian School in Pennsylvania. It had over 10,000 kids between 1879 and 1918. And it was founded by Mr. Pratt with the explicit goal of assimilating Indian children into the white man Euro-American culture. So when I talked about last week about how you're asking your clients, do you know if you have any Indian or Native American ancestry, and they say, well, I'm not really sure, but my grandma talked about it and said that I might be Cherokee. And then some people have followed up and asked me, well, how could they not know if they were a member of an Indian tribe? How could they not know? For this reason. Many of these children came home from these boarding schools not even recognizing their own parents' faces. So many of them had their culture completely washed out of their lives. Had any memories of their culture, including their language, washed out of their lives. Mr. Pratt's slogan, which I thought was very interesting, was to civilize the Indian, get him into civilization. To keep him civilized, let him stay. And that is why this became so important, because thousands and thousands of Native American children were completely devoid of any of their culture, their knowledge of their culture, and devoid of the great community that we can now try to work to get our clients back connected to. So part of the ICWA is appreciating the culture, and part of it is also rebuilding our clients' culture for them from what was taken from them way back when. So now we're going to get back into the qualified expert witness. Now I talked a little bit about this last time because a lot of questions were fielded towards the end. So I'm not going to go into a whole lot of great depth about it again this time, but I will take questions. This is just, once again for you, the disposition standard that is a little different. And in California, I do just want you to know that we are a dual standard state, so we practice both the ICWA standard and our state standard. So the court still needs to also find that there's clear and convincing evidence that the child would be at substantial risk of harm and there are no reasonable means to protect. Furthermore, that the child cannot be placed in foster care placement unless the court determines by clear and convincing evidence, including the testimony of a witness, that the continued custody by the parent or Indian custodian is likely to result in serious emotional or physical damage to the child. Now, the BIA guidelines that I mentioned last time suggest to us that evidence of community or family poverty, crowded or inadequate housing, alcohol abuse, or non-conforming social behavior is not enough. So just keep that in mind. Those are not governing, but they are informing guidelines. This is briefly the termination of parental rights standard that, again, still requires our state standard. California is a dual standard state. and in an ICWA case, that termination of parental rights may occur only if the court determines, based on evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, so now we're in the criminal standard, that including testimony of a qualified expert witness, that the continued custody by the parent is likely to result in serious emotional or physical damage to the child. So now we get into what exactly is a qualified expert witness, and what is this person supposed to know? What is their purpose? Why do we have them here? A qualified expert witness is required in any Indian case, ICWA case, when you are at disposition or 2-6 hearing. Now, many courts will just take an expert letter in lieu of testimony. That is completely in contrast to what the law says. You may only accept an expert testimony in writing if you have a written stipulation. I've given you the code site, and it's also in other portions of the law, and I believe the 2-page handout that you guys all got last time also mentions it. One of the handouts I gave you today is sort of a sample drafted stipulation that I, not being perfect, created, looking at what it is the law requires and what you would want if there were a circumstance where you wanted to waive an expert witness. Maybe this is a case where you have that parent who comes in, they have a teenager, and they really need help. They can't have this kid at home right now because the kid needs to be in a more structured setting, and so they would like to waive the expert. They don't want to go through the whole rigmarole of having an expert testify, delaying their case, because oftentimes these expert witnesses will delay a case, not the witness themselves, but the county council.
Does phone testimony need this, or is it considered live?
Phone testimony is considered live as long as all parties consent.
If we don't need
So you don't need a stipulation. You only need a stipulation if you're taking a letter in lieu of any testimony that would allow for cross-examination. So you have a sample here. I'm sure it could be reworked, but the sample I gave you basically covers the 3 things that you would need in writing for a stipulation to be valid by the court. And just know that it requires you to actually explain to your client the rights that they have, because part of this has them sign saying they've been informed of the consequences of waiving this requirement. So you do need to explain to them the consequences. Now, your qualified expert witness, most likely to qualify, I think, so California doesn't delineate these in terms of tier 1, 2, 3. Our statute simply says these are the 3 kinds of people who are most likely to qualify. They are not in any hierarchy. However, I would like us to think of them as if they are in a hierarchy, because number 1 is, I think, the best expert you can have. A member of the child's tribe who is recognized by the tribal community as being knowledgeable about the customs as they pertain to family organization and child rearing practices. However, as I will show you with our sample expert letter, that's not always necessarily helpful to us, but it is the person who's going to be the most qualified to offer an opinion that is in the spirit of why the qualified expert witness is required. We don't just want someone who's this number 3, a professional person who has substantial education and experience in the area of his or her specialty. That would be like the example of Dr. Crespo I gave you guys last time when I had him proffered as an expert on one of my ICWA cases. That effectively is just an expert who serves as a mouthpiece for the department. That is not what the purpose of the qualified expert witness is. Again, going back to the historical aspect, this requirement was created to try and offer an independent perspective that perhaps to eliminate some of the implicit bias that social workers had back in the 40s, 50s, even earlier, when they were removing children from their parents' homes basically because they were Indian, and a white family could do a much better job. So we want this requirement of qualified expert witness not just to read the department's reports and say, yep, I agree with the social worker. This person is supposed to, hopefully, in the ideal circumstance, take an independent look, interview parties who maybe the department didn't even contact, look at information maybe perhaps provided directly from the parents, not just the social worker's reports. And then this just tells you some examples of persons who may, it's a limited but not exclusive list of who may qualify as one of these expert witnesses. So now with, does everybody have the 3-page handout that says at the top, Superior Court of California, Los Angeles Juvenile Court, the qualified expert witness affidavit? Okay. With that in mind, I'm going to go through and we're going to talk about what should an expert know and how to go about cross-examining or picking apart an expert witness's testimony or letter. Basically, the expert should know how children are viewed by the tribe. Is it really all that unreasonable for the 12-year-old to have been left home to care for her 4-year-old brother? Is that part of what their community and culture is about? Do what we consider pretty young and maybe immature children, are they responsible for taking on household duties, for caring for their younger siblings for limited periods of time? Just an example. Child rearing in the tribe, the use of discipline. This doesn't mean that these things are necessarily, it's not like, oh, the tribe says that hitting your child with a switch is okay, so no problems here. I mean, this is not anything that any tribe that I know of, but it doesn't mean that the use of discipline is automatically allowed. I mean, I've had to, when I was in the Asian Pacific Islander unit, I had to many a time talk with some of the families and say, you know, this may have been how you were raised culturally, and we understand that, but here's what the state of California says, and are you willing to discipline your children this way going forward? That's kind of what we're looking at here. Child rearing in the tribe, the use of discipline, cultural expectations. That's sort of along the same line as what I was saying earlier about what are the roles in the family, what is the expectation of, you know, do they have the same view of leaving your child with someone who we may think is a stranger, but in their community is really just a family friend who, they're part of their tribe, they don't really have to know a whole lot about them. Tribe services, very, very important. Family's history, that's in all of our cases. The particular incidents of the case, they should know exactly what happened, not just this child was physically abused or this child was sexually abused. They should really know what is being alleged and what's going on here. The child's specific needs, and again, the tribe and family view of the situation. So, looking at the qualified expert witness affidavit that I've printed out for you guys, I redacted this from a case that I did, and regrettably, I submitted on this written expert letter. This was, I've gotten a lot better. This was very early on in my practice. It was one of my first cases that I did in the ICWA courtroom. And when I was going back and pulling some of my files, I pulled this one and I wanted to hit myself like 4 times over after reading this expert letter and seeing what it is was submitted to the court as qualified expert witness testimony that that there was clear and convincing evidence that the children would suffer serious physical or emotional harm in the care of their mother in this case. So there are a number of problems with this expert letter. First of all, where are the qualifications and backgrounds? So this expert from the Rosebud Sioux tribe, Shirley Badwind, submits her letter, and then a 1-page, basically, I don't even know that you could really call this her resume, or it is a 1 page about 5 lines, no, sorry, about 10 lines of information as to why she thinks she's qualified as an expert witness. So her qualifications and background, she's a member of the tribe, great, so this is in our first tier. She says she's recognized by the community as being knowledgeable in the tribal customs as they pertain to the family organization and child rearing practices. Direct quote from the statute. She has substantial experience working as an Indian child welfare specialist for 11 years, 4 months, and then it talks about her education. So we have here on paper what seems like, okay, she probably knows what she's doing. However, I did not go into any cross-examination with this witness. I could have asked her what specifically she knew about the tribe's governing structure, the family structure, the child rearing practices. Nowhere here does she really talk about the services that are available to the family. Her last bullet point is appropriate services were provided to the family to prevent the out-of-home placement. What were those services? I don't know. And from looking at the social workers' reports, it's not very clear either. In this case, my client was involved with the UAII through referrals from our office. However, there's nothing here that indicates that the tribe was contacted to explore services through the tribe, what services the social worker made attempts to hook the family up to, what services maybe could be put in place to prevent the need for these children to be removed from their mother. Is there anything? There is no discussion of whether or not some counseling for the family. These were older children, teenagers who didn't really want to be with mom. Conjoint counseling may have been extremely advisable prior to making the disposition findings. None of that is discussed in here. What did she do to prepare? I certainly can't tell from reading this letter. I don't know if you guys can. She says that they received appropriate notice of the proceedings, that she just says the conduct of the mother. She says the buzzwords, the children have suffered, or there's substantial risk that children will suffer serious physical harm or illness. And the buzzwords that continued custody of the above named children by the mother is likely to result in serious physical and or emotional damage to them. We don't know who she spoke with. We don't know what she reviewed. Did she only review, this is like what I was telling you earlier, independent knowledge is key. Did she only review the department's reports? Because if all the expert witness is doing is being handed a detention report and a juror's report and being said, here, read this and tell me what you think. Well, in most cases, the department writes it in a light that makes it, unless you know other information, kind of hard to really disagree with them. There's information that we get from our clients about what services they're in that the department isn't aware of, how their visits have been going, what family members are available for support in the community. Maybe if our client's already enrolled in counseling or parenting or a drug treatment program, the experts should call their program. The social workers don't often do that predisposition. They're not always calling the programs and interviewing the parent service providers. They may mention in the report that the parent's involved in this service, but oftentimes you don't get a very detailed interview or discussion with these service providers. These are things that are very important for a truly independent, qualified expert witness to do, to go over, instead of just providing something that's very basic and generic and I could probably put a lot of different case numbers and names up here and you wouldn't know the difference. Because there's really nothing case specific to this except for the vague descriptions of the abuse that happened in this case. So that is basically in a nutshell what we want and what I want us all to try to practice in going forward in cases where we do have qualified expert witnesses. I will say that subsequent to this, I did one case where I saw the letter. The letter looked pretty good. It was from